right, we're going to get things underway here. Let me introduce your first speaker. He's the founder and director of Make the Turn Performance, based in Pebble Beach, California. He's the director of Nike golf schools and junior camps across North America. That's over 110 locations. He's made several appearances on the Golf Channel, over 30 appearances on popular programs like Morning Drive. He's a contributor to Golf Digest, and his digital content that he put up on Golf Digest, a digital series in 2014, garnered 20 million views. It was the most successful program on their digital platform. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak to us on moving towards success on and off the golf course, Mr. Jeff Ritter.
Hey, thank you so much for having me as your first presenter. My talk is called Moving Towards, and it's all about unapologetically moving towards your authentic desires, both on and off the golf course, personal, business, and also lifestyle development. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened to me in my life, in my career, that I've learned, and I really believe that they're going to help you maybe take some positive, inspired action towards being the kind of person, professional, living the lifestyle that you want on and off the golf course. I've always loved golf. I've loved coaching golf. This morning, I had breakfast with, where's Honey Boy? Back there? So I go down at about 6 o'clock. I think I'm going to be by myself, tired from my 26 and a half hours of traveling. I'm going to have my cup of coffee. And he invites me to share his breakfast with him. We sit down, and as the coffee starts flowing and I start to wake up a little bit, we got into a conversation. In fact, I think I gave him my entire presentation for tomorrow already. But what I realized in that moment, which I've always known, but it was a great reminder, I love golf. I love coaching golf. I love helping people. I love doing whatever I can based on my skill set to try and inspire people to greater action. So thanks so much for sharing your breakfast with me. I'm presenting for an hour and a half today, also an hour and a half tomorrow, as are Cameron and James. But we are here for you for the next 2 days. Part of my dream is being lived out right now here on this stage. I'll talk more about that. No place I'd rather be than right here, right now, helping and sharing with you. So I want to thank Steve so much for giving me the opportunity. So if you love golf, you love coaching like I do, you've been doing this for a long time, you may have had a moment in your journey where things weren't quite going the way that you had planned. So I'll just give you a little backstory on sort of who I am and how I got into this business. My father, PGA of America professional. He was the winner of a national award called the Bill Strausbaugh Award. And I loved playing golf as a kid. I used to go to work with my dad every single morning. And my mother would wake me up. She would say, "You playing golf today?" And I would say yes. She would say, "There's only one car going to the golf course, and it's your father's. If you want to play golf, you got to get up and go to work." So I would go to work with my dad, and I would spend all day chipping and pitching and putting and bugging the people in the restaurant and the greens crew. It just became part of who I was. And as I got older, I thought to myself, how am I going to make a career getting up every single day, doing exactly what I wanted to do, and being part of exactly what I wanted to be part of? So because my father was in the business, I got some opportunities at a very young age to start teaching. My very first golf lesson was 16 years old at our home course. One of the members asked me to help them fix their ball flight. My father said, "Well, if they're going to pay you something, go for it." So I started digging into reading everything I could get my hands on, to watching every single video. My father and I, part of our father-son trips, we would travel around the country and we'd take lessons from great golf coaches, like Jim Flick, like Ben Doyle in the Carmel area, a gentleman named Ted Sheftick, who's a top 100 coach. I was just so immersed in this idea of one day being very good at coaching and helping people. So I go off to college. Because I was so immersed in doing this, at 19 years old, I contacted a man named Mike LeBove. He was on the cover of Golf Digest magazine. And I'd always coveted Golf Digest as a kid, and I thought that, man, if you could be part of Golf Digest in any way, shape, or form, you had it made. That's where all the great golf information came from, and that's where all the great coaches were. So I contacted Mike, and I said, if I pay for a golf lesson, will you help me for a half an hour with my own game? Then will you share a half an hour with me on how I can possibly do what you do? He was so gracious to do that. And I went up there. Back in the day, when I would get my Golf Digest magazines, I would go to the swing sequences. They would always have each month, all the top players. and I would rip those pages out, and I would take a ruler and a marker, and I would draw lines, and I would take those little sticky tape pads, and I would put questions on there, question, question, question. And I created this massive 3-ring binder. It became all the things that I wanted to know more about in golf. So I went up to see Mike. We had a half-hour lesson. They invited me for lunch. He said, I understand you have some questions about what it takes to be a good coach. I said, yeah, I do. And I reached down, and I grabbed this 3-ring binder, and I just dropped it on the table, and he went, oh my God, we're going to be here for a while. So something in that moment, in that session, allowed Mike to show an interest in me and my development. He went back into his office, and he picked up the phone, and he called Hank Haney, 19 years old. He called Hank Haney. He said, Hank, I got a guy I want you to meet. Within a couple of days, I was on an airplane. I flew down to meet with Hank Haney. Canceled our appointments. I met with one of his assistants. But in that moment, I was severely empowered. I felt like, you know what? Even though I'm only 19 years old, this is exactly what I should be doing. Someone out there believes in me, and I'm going to keep pushing in this direction. So I graduated from school, and I was very fortunate to get a job working for Dave Pelz. Here knows who Dave Pelz is. Big short game guru in North America, has worked with a tremendous number of players throughout professional golf. And I show up at the Dave Pelz Short Game School on my first day of work during the Bob Hope Chrysler Classic in Palm Springs, PGA West. And as I walk out there, I see Tom Kite, Curtis Strange, and Peter Jacobson. And all of a sudden, Peter Jacobson pulls in this rented Ferrari, and he's got the radio cranking as high as it can go, like a rock star, like David Lee Roth from Van Halen, I thought at the time. And in that moment, I said, wow, I am, again, in the right place. And all of a sudden, the pros are talking to Dave, and they're all gathered around. Dave yells over to me, Jeff, come over here. So now I think, this is my moment. This is when I go from who I am to who I've always wanted to be. And I run over there, and I go, Dave, yeah. He goes, hey, do me a favor, get these guys some sandwiches. So I was knocked down a peg, but I spent some time at the Dave Pelz schools. Because I always coveted this opportunity to work with Golf Digest, I one day got the call. Part of a Golf Digest Learning Center just outside of New York City. And I showed up there, and the experience for me turned out being the exact opposite of what I had hoped it would be. I showed up at the range, and unknown to me was that the range was not built yet. So they handed me a shovel. They said, we need to build this place. So I would show up every day, and I would dig, and I would hammer, help them build this range. Well, as part of my work relationship with Golf Digest at that time, I didn't make very much money. I worked long hours. The range had lights. I would show up when it was still dark. I would leave when it was very dark. And I would drive the long drive home from New York City down the Jersey coast so I could find a place where I could afford to live. And I was working very hard, and I was starting to lose my faith in my path. Well, one day I showed up to work, and the place was closed. It had big wooden boards across all the doors and windows. It turns out they were no longer going to be promoting our Learning Center project. First time in my life, I was unemployed. So I had to go down to a place called Trenton, New Jersey. And I had to stand in an unemployment line from here to the wall, in about 6 inches of snow. I thought to myself, oh no, this is not what I thought was going to happen. This is the exact opposite of how I thought things were going to go. And I really started to question my commitment to being in the golf business. I'd done everything in my power to know the right people, work for the right organizations. Now I was unemployed. So I couldn't afford to live near New York City anymore. I decided to move to California, which helped things, but I wanted to move back to the West Coast. And I couldn't find work. So I started teaching at a little driving range outside of Oakland. It was the worst driving range you've ever seen. Worn out mats. The range was about 165 yards straight uphill. And their big selling point to get you to buy golf balls was that on Wednesdays, if you bought golf balls, you also got a plate of free nachos. Again, in my life I've heard a couple of great sayings, and one of the sayings is never challenge worse. Can't get worse, boom, worse, right? So that happened to me. and I couldn't afford to live in California. So I started driving back to Arizona, where I'd met Mike LeBove, and I decided that I was going to try and find any piece of grass that I could give a golf lesson on. And I invested a couple of dollars in a little sign that had my name on it, PGA Pro. I thought because I'd worked for all these great organizations that people were just going to start showing up, and they didn't. And that's when I had my second big, oh no. So what I'm going to share with you is something that happened to me along the way that turned everything around in a very, very profound way. And all of this story is a little bit about my life. What the lesson is going to be, I hope, is the moment that I realized the way things work. I learned that there's sort of an organizing intelligence that sort of rules our universe. If you believe in it, amazing things can happen in your life, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, I've got a question for you. I want you to ask yourself for a moment, what's the lowest score you can imagine shooting in your entire lifetime under any circumstance? Just take a moment, ask yourself that question. Does anyone want to share with me the number they have in their head? I'm just going to point to you. What do you think? 65. Okay, anyone else? 54. Give me one more. Somebody in the back. Just shout it out. 64. Okay. So here's another question. What's the most amount of money you can imagine making in 1 year in your entire lifetime under any circumstance? Anybody? Is it a hard thing to say, to shout out? One person give me something? $1 million? One more. All right, so we'll go with that. So something is very interesting that's happening here. Because when we ask the same question to kids, their response is very different. So let's talk about question number one, the lowest score you can imagine shooting in your entire lifetime under any circumstance. I heard some 54s, I heard some 64s. Ask a 10-year-old, they'll tell you this. 18 holes, 18 swings, they all go in the hole, 18. Question number two, what's the most amount of money you can imagine making in your entire lifetime under any circumstance? I love this one. All of it. So something very interesting has happened from adolescence to adulthood. And the thing that happened with you happens in every single presentation I give on this topic. You changed the question. What was the question I asked you? What was the key word, the operative word? Imagination, right? Your imagination should have no restrictions. The only reason why you would imagine something less is because you've been conditioned to do so. You change the question from imagination to practicality, to realism, to likelihood. And again, that comes from our past experiences. The older we get, we see the result we get on the golf course. So when I say what's the lowest score you can imagine shooting, under any circumstance, you're only imagining a couple strokes lower than the lowest score you ever shot. I asked that question in one of our programs to someone, and at the time he was a 7 handicap, and I said, what's the lowest score you can ever imagine shooting in your entire lifetime under any circumstance? The guy was about 35 years old. He said, I don't know, 75? And I thought, you're at a golf school in Pebble Beach. You got coaches all around you. You're talented, you're coordinated. You can only imagine a few less. And again, he hasn't been getting the results that he's been putting into his game, so his ability to imagine has been diminished. And the same thing with the money question. If you sit in a group of people who aren't afraid to really share, that number, if they make $50,000 a year, they'll bump it up a little bit, 70, 100, and if things just went right, 150 grand, right? But of course, that's based on our conditioning. So there's a problem associated with this. And the problem is your trajectory in life, your ability to succeed, is directly correlated to the depth of your imagination. So the first thing that we have to do to have, be, or do whatever we want in this life is we got to be able to stretch the boundaries of our thinking. We got to be able to begin stripping our self-imposed limitations. So any limitations that I see in my life, that you see in your life, are based on one thing, and it's the depth of your imagination. The universe has no restrictions. You place restrictions on the universe with your expectations. Everyone knows who Deepak Chopra is. Why is this important? It's not your practice life. You only got one. I have one. You have one. There's certain things in life that catch our eye, but if you really want to be happy, motivated, successful, and feel like at the end of this life you've given it all you got, it's best to pursue things only that capture your heart. And that's what happened to me along with this process that I'm excited to share with you. So we got 3 steps: clarity, courage, and discipline. Clarity. I changed this slide just because Cameron was here. So you have, how old was Jordan? Was he 12 years old?
Just short of his 13th birthday.
Okay, so just short of his 13th birthday, Jordan Spieth shows up to see our friend Cameron McCormick, and Cameron asks him, "What do you want out of your golf game?" And guess what? He's pretty young, right? He hasn't been conditioned to believe otherwise. Of course, we know what he's become, probably largely due in part to how he thinks. Some people have that gift of imagination more or less, even at a younger age. But he didn't say, "I want to break 70." He didn't say, "I want to make my high school golf team." He didn't say, "I want to win the state championship." He didn't say, "I want to be an All-American." He didn't say, "I want to win the Honda Classic." He said, "I want to win the Masters." Right? So I would say that was pretty much in line with his authentic desire. 100% in line with what he wanted, and he wasn't afraid to share it with his coach. So what happened to me when I was at this low point in my life is I started spending time with a mental toughness coach. Some of you know them as sports psychologists. Nowadays, they like to be called mental toughness coaches. But basically, they work with athletes, business professionals, and anyone who wants more out of life, anyone who wants to crush it and understands that there's a direct correlation between thinking and success. So I became friends with this gentleman. His name's Chris Dorse, and it was a Friday night, and he was writing a book called Creating Your Dream. And in that book, he was considering putting an exercise that he saw in a Tony Robbins presentation. Who here knows who Tony Robbins is? Yeah, so world-renowned, emotional leadership success coach. And he said, "You know what, I'm thinking about putting this exercise in my book. Would you mind going through the exercise and maybe testing out some of its effectiveness?" So I said, "Sure." It's about 5 o'clock in the evening. The bar wasn't going to be open for a couple of hours, at least not the bar we wanted to go to. So I said, "Sure." So he gave me a sheet of paper, a big yellow legal pad, and he goes, "I want you to write some categories on it. I'll share more about those categories." But he said, "I want you to go to a quiet place. I want you to sit down with your thoughts, and I want you to ask yourself this question. If you had your own personal genie, which possessed infinite levels of possibility and an unlimited number of wishes, what would you wish for? In essence, if I could have, be, or do whatever I wanted with no restrictions, what would those things be?" So I did that, and I came back an hour later with a list that encompassed these categories: personal, professional, family, or other. And I love this quote: "The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be." So he said, "Okay, let's see what is on your list." So what I want you to do right now, if you look at the sheets of paper in front of you, you actually have your own personal genie list. And what I want you to do in the next 30 seconds is I want you to write down something that you think would be an absolute game changer for you on or off the golf course, in business, personal, lifestyle development. And I want you to write that thing down based on our premise of having our own personal genie. And I want it to be fantastic. Where does the word fantastic come from? The word fantasy. So we're going to strip down these self-imposed limitations that we put on ourselves through our conditioning. I want you to make it really big, massive. You don't have to show it to anybody. If you can put something in multiple categories, that's fine as well. But write down at least one thing. So now you're engaging just a little bit in the exercise that Chris Doris helped me engage in. The great thing about this exercise is that you're going to have a lot of fun writing down some pretty crazy things. One of the things that was on my original list is that I wanted to have 25 houses on the island of Maui, which is ridiculous. Who needs 25 houses? One will do just fine. But that's how you have to sort of start stretching your imagination. Write things down as they pop into your head. And what you're going to find as you start looking through this list, after you go through this exercise for an hour or so, is you're going to find some things in that list that your heart is attached to that possibly you never knew, or possibly you suppressed and put somewhere else in your past. So my list in 2002 looked like this. I wrote down that I wanted to be an airplane pilot. I wanted to be a guitarist in a band. I wanted to author my own book. I wanted to be on the cover of a national golf magazine. I wanted to be on the Golf Channel, and I wanted to visit the home of St. Andrews in Scotland. So my friend Chris, he looked at this list, he goes, well, this is great. He goes, tell me about number one. Tell me about your desire to be a pilot. He goes, that's got to come from somewhere. So I thought for a second, I said, you know what? When I was 14 years old, a friend of mine, his father had his own twin-engine plane. And he and I, down to the 1986 Sea Pines Heritage Classic. And I saw Davis Love win his very first tour event. And as we were flying in this small plane, which I'd never been in before, we came across this massive storm. And there was thunder and lightning, and the plane was experiencing all this turbulence. And everyone on the plane was like this, and I was like this. I had my hands on the seats, and I was just looking at the gauges, and I thought, this is awesome. He goes, fantastic. What I want you to do now is I want you to pick up the phone, and I want you to call a flight center, and we're going to go fly in airplanes tomorrow. So what are you talking about? He goes, it's on the list. All right, let's make a call. So I went in the yellow pages, the phone book. I found the Southwest Flight Center. I called them up and I said, is there a way I can fly an airplane tomorrow? They said, absolutely. So I showed up the next day. I'll tell you more about what happened. He goes, tell me about this guitarist thing. I said, you know what? My grandfather used to have a room full of every musical instrument you could ever imagine. And I never played any music. I always wanted to, but I was always playing golf and baseball and things like that, and soccer. And throughout college, I used to go to different clubs and different rock shows, and I would always sit in the audience. And I said, I think every single time I was watching a show, at one point I said to myself, I wish I could do that. Never did anything about it. So right after my flying lesson, I scheduled a guitar lesson. He goes, tell me about author. I said, well, writing a book, that sounds cool. Who wouldn't want to do that? He goes, I want you to open up a document on your computer, and I want you to start writing your book. I said, what am I going to write about? He goes, it doesn't matter. So I just seen a movie with the actor Billy Crystal called Throw Mama from the Train. And in the movie, he's got writer's block. So he's just looking at a page that says, the night was, ... So I just wrote the night was, and then I closed the document. Cover story. He goes, why would you want to be on the cover of a magazine? I'm like, well, I grew up watching, my favorite coaches on the pages of Golf Digest. I mean, what coach wouldn't want to be respected for what they have to say? He goes, well, do you know anyone that's in the magazine business? I said, well, I did an article for a magazine a few months ago called Golf Tips in Los Angeles. He goes, can you email the editor and just ask him a question? How do you decide what goes on a cover? I'd like to learn more about what you do. So I did that. Golf Channel. I decided that I was going to videotape myself giving a tip the next day and start looking at it and critiquing it. And then St. Andrews, I just opened up the website for St. Andrews and I left it there. I made it my screensaver and I looked at it every single day. We'll get more back to what happened with my list at the end of this discussion. So step number 2, which I've already talked about, is the courage to declare. The courage to take what's on your list and to create some movement or some action in that direction. That's why this talk is called Moving Towards. Moving towards our authentic desires. Now that we've done the genie list, we know what our hearts are truly attached to. So now we have to understand that the number one barrier to success is waiting. Who here has had a big idea, a big dream, a big goal, and they did nothing? Just wait, they sit on it. Yeah, everybody. I had a million of them. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. So making that call takes courage, the courage to declare. Self-imposed barriers. These are the things that get in our way. Don't have enough time, don't have enough money. These are excuses, right? Who here has ever made these excuses? No time, no money, not smart enough, can't do it yet. I've made these a thousand times. Which brings me up another cool point. Great question we always ask people in our program. When do you become an expert? Does anyone have a good way to define that? When you occupy expert status? It's because you attend something like this? It's because you get a certification? It's because you complete coaching 10,000 golf lessons in your lifetime? We believe it's simply when you decide that you're an expert. When you permit yourself to believe that you have something to give to someone else that can help them get what they want out of their life, on or off the golf course. We've come across a lot of athletes in our training that are some of the most talented people you ever come across. They're never going to be like Jordan Spieth. They can hit it just as far. They can hit it close to the pin. They can putt their asses off. But they don't believe that they deserve to be experts in that capacity. And as a result, you don't know who they are. So we start off with these questions about, how low you can shoot, how much cash you're going to make. And the reason we do that is because we have to come to this understanding that we are operating from a shrunken level of imagination. And with me in my life as a coach, I realized that I really didn't know what I wanted. I'd worked for all the right places, so I thought, to become some great teacher. But at the end of it, I kind of lost my passion for coaching. I was working too hard. I wasn't making any money. I was on a range next to a pile of balls saying, oh no. So this moment in my life really started to turn things around in a positive way. So I made all these calls, I did all these things, and now goes into what we call step number 3, which is the discipline factor. You set this dream in motion, so now it comes down to how am I going to make this a reality? And this is where you have to have patience and trust, resolve, intestinal fortitude. You have to believe that no good work goes unrewarded. And you have to believe that if you start chipping away at your imaginary wall just a little bit each day, eventually over time, you're going to be able to break through and get to the other side. So these are the little mantras that I always like to remember related to this process. Number 1, I love it. The how is inherent within the what. So what does that mean? What that means is, right now, how you're going to achieve this goal is the least important thing in the world. The only thing that's important is the what. Because only when you move will the path begin to present itself. Only when you leap will the net appear. Another way we like to say this is that within my inherent desires already lie the mechanics for their own fulfillment, or the how is in the what. So what's one of our biggest barriers? Waiting, right? Oh, I want to do this great thing. Oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough education. Trust me, it doesn't matter. You will figure it out. Fortune favors the bold. Right? So that's the courage to declare, to move forward, no matter what anyone says you can or can't do. So let's take some action. So step number 2 for you on your genie list and I'm going to give you permission to do so, is right now, I want you to email or text someone what's on your list. And I want you to say, this is what I want to do, and I thought that maybe we could talk about how you can help me. If you don't want to do that, you can say, hey, I'm just reaching out. I haven't spoken to you in a while. I've got something I want to talk to you about. Do you have a few minutes next week? So try and make this person someone that you feel can help provide some direction or support to whatever it is that is on your list. This is the push that Chris Doris gave to me. And this is the push that I'm now hopefully gifting back to you. We're breaking through the waiting barrier. Is everyone texting? Everyone? This is what I was talking about related to trusting the process. The DWIT. Do what it takes. Am I willing to get up every day, continually thinking big, moving towards my authentic desires, putting in the work, scratching away at my wall, right, and not putting any pressure on the outcome? So I love this quote by Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down. It has made all the difference in my life. I can't tell you how many times this has helped me sustain this process moving forward. I moved to Pebble Beach a couple years ago, and I contacted the local paper, the Monterey Herald, and I decided to pitch the idea of creating a golf column. It's called The Golfing Life, every Thursday. In fact, I'm writing this week's column based on this event. And I'm on about my 90th column, and every single week, that column has been a huge pain in my ass because they don't pay me for doing it. But every week I get the most amazing responses. Many times from people who don't even play golf. I've probably gotten 5 clients out of my last 90 columns, but every week I spend a few hours and I put the column out there. And what has happened is I've started to become a recognized figure in the community. My wife would walk our dog at the beach, and she would introduce herself, and they would say, oh, Ritter, does your husband write that column for the Herald? And that's been happening over and over and over again. And there's a lot of amazing people in the Pebble Beach community. So my willingness to do something small, which I might look at from a shrunken level of imagination, saying this isn't making me any money, is actually doing amazing, amazing things. And I've got a million examples of other things that I've done out of trust, out of instinct, that have always paid off. So now we're going to get into the mental toughness toolbox. These are the things that we share with our athletes that are directly applicable to performance on or off the golf course. Mental toughness, number 1, what I think is what I do. So we run these junior golf camps that our MC described. We run them in Pebble Beach. We have about 320 kids from all over the world that fly in for our junior golf camp experience. It's a pretty cool camp because we play Spyglass in Spanish Bay and our home course at Poppy Hills. We do a par 3 tournament at one of the Pebble Beach facilities. During the first night of camp, we take the kids to the beach, and we take them up on number 7 at Pebble Beach. They just walk right from the beach up there. They take pictures of themselves. It's a magical experience. But during this camp, we have a session on mental toughness training. And what we do, and I was going to do this for all of you, but then I realized that I was never going to be able to pull it off, is we hand the kids a fishing weight suspended at the end of a string about this long. So imagine that. Go down to the hardware store, your local bait and tackle shop, and just buy yourself a little weight and attach it to a string. What we have the kids do is they simply suspend the string between their fingers, and I have them stare at it. And when the room is nice and quiet, I tell them that I want them to engage in an exercise in imagery. So what I want them to do is to imagine, in their mind's eye, the weight behaving a certain way. I want them to imagine the weight swinging towards them and away from them like a pendulum on a clock. And as they do that, I'll say, now imagine the weight swinging bigger and faster, bigger and faster. until the arc is moving almost out of control. And of course, the most amazing thing happens, which is the weight starts to behave according to the mental picture. Then I say, okay, now I want you to change the picture. And this time I want you to imagine the weight swinging around the numbers of a massive clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Create an image which is unique to you. Maybe a ride at a carnival, the chair swinging around in an arc. And again, imagine that arc going bigger and faster and bigger and faster until it's spinning out of control. And of course, the weight behaves in that manner. And all the kids drop the weights and strings and they go, oh my gosh. And I said, well, what happened? What happened right there? Star Wars just came out. Is this whole camp a big sham? Are you guys in Jedi training? Your parents sent you here at a special price to learn this skill, to become Jedis? No. So the question is why does the weight move? Has anyone ever done this exercise before? Right, so tell me quickly, why does the weight move? We're not trying to make it move, right? We're not trying to physically make it swing and shift its course. So why does it move? Simple. Because your hand moves. So the lesson is, I wasn't trying to move the weight. I created a picture of the weight moving in my head, and the weight started to behave according to that picture. So that becomes our first lesson in mental toughness. What I think is what I do. What I focus on, I give rise to. My outer world is a reflection of my inner world. Buddha stuff, right? So basically, if what we think is what we do, don't you think we need to be careful about the kinds of things that we choose to think about? On a golf course, that's really powerful, right? So everyone's heard of mental imagery in the course. Well, we also want to start our day with mental imagery. So when you wake up in the morning, what I want you to challenge yourself to do is spend a few minutes alone, and I want you to imagine what your perfect day looks like today. Where are you going to go? Who are you going to see? How are you going to feel? What are you going to accomplish? And then fast forward that picture into a snapshot of the rest of your life. I guarantee you what happens up here will start to manifest itself out there. Mental toughness toolbox, element number 2, emotional mastery. Create the state, don't wait. And this comes from our coaching with athletes. So one of the things that we know through sports psychology, through psychology in general, probably the one most important aspect of human performance in general, is that simply people are at their best when they feel their best. Would everyone agree with that? When I feel good, I'm doing well. So for a moment, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a time in your life where you were operating at your all-time best, where you were happy, relaxed, you were absolutely crushing it. Can everyone imagine at least one thing that's happened to them where they had that moment? I hope so. Well, create the state, don't wait is based on what we call the freedom formula. So the freedom formula basically says that our moods are controlled by our thought. Who controls your thoughts? You do. So at any moment in time, through thinking, you're going to have access to an emotional state that will help you perform your best. So here's another exercise. We're going to get dark just for 1 second. So right now, I want you to close your eyes and imagine something that has happened in your life that was not good, that was totally, totally tragic. If you've been on this planet any period of time, we've all had them, whether to yourself or someone you know. All right, so let's leave there. And now I want you to imagine a moment in your life where it was just the exact opposite. High-grade mood. Everything's going great. Going to a comedy show, hearing a friend's joke, laughing your ass off. Could you feel a difference in what was happening in here? Yes, no? So if your answer is yes, then within the span of about 20 seconds, through your thinking, you just went from emotional suffering to emotional high-grade ecstasy, all through your thoughts. So if you're at your best when you feel your best, one of the things that you can start doing is you can create the state, don't wait. That means Don't wait for something good to happen out there before you permit yourself to feel amazing in here. Well, think about how important that is for a golfer. If I'm out there playing and I have to wait for a putt to go in or a ball to land in the fairway before I permit myself to feel amazing, it might never happen. But I know that when I feel amazing, I'm going to have access to my best stuff. So part of a great pre-shot routine that we coach is making sure that after the player sees what they want, imagery, communicates what they want through a rehearsal, we have them elevate their state, elevate their mood, so that when they're standing over that shot, they're thinking there's no place I'd rather be than right here, right now. And from that elevated state, they're going to have access to a swing which is the best representation of the skill they've worked so hard to develop. Perspective. Live above the O-line. Again, this comes from golf. We're going to shift it into all the stuff you guys are doing. O stands for observation. And really, this is all about understanding that golf and life, they're games of opportunity. So what we want to do is we want to start removing language such as good and bad. If you hit a ball in the trees, it's not bad, it's just offline. If it lands at the target, it's online. So let's say I hit my ball in the trees. I've got three options. I can create a low-grade observation, which is, oh no, this is not good, right? I can create a neutral observation, which is just in the trees. Or I can create a high-grade observation, which is, in some way, shape, or form, this might actually benefit me. So let's go back to Bubba Watson at the Masters. The first Masters he won against Oosthuizen. So he's on number 10, and he hits the ball offline into the trees. In that moment, what is the whole world thinking if you're a Bubba Watson fan? Oh no, right? Oh no, my ball is in the trees. Well, we all saw the shot that he hit. We know the kind of player that he is. So I'm betting that when he walked over there, he wasn't thinking, oh no. He was thinking, wait till they see what I do with this. The highlight reel is not from the middle of the fairway. The highlight reel is from the trees. The highlight reel is the stuff Phil Mickelson does all day long. It's when you're at your best, when you're creative, when you're a shot maker, when you're playing the game, when you see an opportunity where others do not. So imagine how you could go out in life and you could create a picture where you expect the world and then put yourself in a position where you, at the very least, accept the results and at the very best, create an opportunity out of what you find. So that's all about perspective, living above the O-line. Teach it to your students with their golf games. Practice it yourself in daily life. See opportunity where others do not. And the final step here in our mental toughness toolbox is what I call flow. The intelligence of fun. So people are at their best when they feel their best. Who here has heard the adage, there's a time for work and there's a time for play? Yeah? Well, guess what? You're at your best when you feel your best. When you're fun, you feel good. Maybe if you made your work your play, you would perform at a higher level. So every day when I get up, I make sure that I'm having a great time in everything that I'm doing. I've selected a lifestyle, working with my students, doing things like this. I'm going to have fun. And if you have fun, what's going to happen is you're going to release serotonin and dopamine within your body. And serotonin and dopamine are the activators of all creative intelligence. So when you are having a great time and you're having fun, you are going to be at your best. And of course, all of these things are going to be on the flash drive that Steve created for you. And I would try on a daily basis to incorporate these not only into your coaching, but also your personal development. All right, so here's the end of this first story. My results. Just like you, I created a Genie list. And just like you, someone pushed me beyond my self-imposed limitations. No time, no money, XYZ. Let's talk about my little dream of being a pilot. So I show up at the Southwest Flight Center, and I fly around Scottsdale. Pretty awesome. So if you love golf, the Phoenix Open last week, I was flying this airplane with an instructor over the golf club, Pinnacle Peak, the Arizona terrain. We landed, and I was just full of exhilaration. I sat down in the office of the guy who owned the flight center, and he started telling me about what it was going to take for me to get my pilot's license. And before a word came out of his mouth, I said, time out. I said, I love doing this, but I can't afford to do this. I just can't. And he said to me, he goes, you teach golf, don't you? I said, yeah. He goes, tell you what, I got a 12-year-old daughter that I would love to have learn the game of golf. If you teach her how to play, we'll teach you how to fly. What do you think? The how was inherent within the what. 12 months later, I was a licensed airplane pilot. It figured itself out. The universe created a solution where before I thought there was none. Guitarist. I went to this guitar lesson, and who here plays a musical instrument? Anyone? It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And a guitar, when you put it on your leg, doesn't exactly balance itself day one. So we're sitting there in this music store where they're giving these lessons, and the instructor said, this is how you hold it, here's the pick, just go ahead and give it a strum. So I go ahead and I strummed it the way that I watched on TV, and the guitar flew out of my hand, and it landed on the floor. It made the worst sound you've ever heard, and everyone in the store was like, oh my God, who's that loser? And I was driving home going, drums, maybe I'm a drummer. So I go home, and there was a movie on TV with Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins called The Shawshank Redemption. Who here has seen The Shawshank Redemption? One of my favorite movies of all time. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching the scene where Morgan Freeman, who's the narrator, is talking about how Tim Robbins was able to escape Shawshank. Basically, the way he escaped was by creating a hole in a massive concrete wall. And he had this little tiny hammer, little tiny rock hammer. And what he would do is each day he would just scratch at the wall. Then he would take the very small amount of debris from the wall and he would put it in his pockets. And he would walk out to the prison yard and he would let it go out onto the floor, into the yard. And the reason why he had to scratch just a little bit is because if he went all in trying to rip big chunks out, the guards would find out. He'd be busted. It would close up his hole. So over 20 years, he created a hole big enough where he's able to find his salvation, reach his freedom. And the big lesson was pressure and time. With a little pressure, over time, you can accomplish amazing things. So I said, you know what? This instructor seemed pretty cool. Maybe if I just spend like 5 minutes with this guitar a day, it'll turn into something. You can play guitar for all of your life, just like you can play golf for all of your life. Let's just see what happens. 6 months later, I got pretty good. I was able to play one song, and I was actually singing and playing with the band on stage in the very club. I used to sit and say, I wish, I wish, I wish. And when I was done, one of my friends handed me a beer, patted me on the back and said, you know what? That was a lot less terrible than I thought it was going to be. But I was encouraged. And I kept on doing it more and more and more, and I started playing in bands and actually getting paid and doing weddings and all kinds of crazy things. I lived my dream because my friend gave me a push. Author. Courage to declare. One of my clients comes in the next day, and at the time I wasn't very good at asking my clients what they did for a living. I would just talk to them about their golf game and their families and try and help them as best I could. So my client said to me, what's new? Who here has heard that? What's new? And you go, same old, same old. Well, instead of saying that, I just said, hey, you know what? I've been thinking about writing a book. In fact, I've already written a couple of chapters. You know what he said to me? He goes, oh, really? I'm in publishing. Tell me more about your book. Within a couple of days, I had a meeting up in Scottsdale. 18 months later, the book was published. It was a life lessons book. And it was endorsed by Golf Digest, Ben Crenshaw, and Chicken Soup for the Soul. Someone gave me a push. The how was inherent within the what. Let's talk about this whole cover story thing. I contacted the editor. We developed a stronger bond. I started learning about what made up a cover story, how they selected them, and why. I started to get more creative with my writing. And to make a long story short, just 2 months ago, I got my 6th national magazine cover in America. The Golf Channel. I realized that the first time I was on camera, I wasn't that good. But I really got interested in trying to practice and to post videos to YouTube and to get better talking to a camera like it was a person. And over time, my skill developed. A year ago, I got a call from Golf Channel to be part of the new Golf Channel Academy network. And because I spent so much time working on camera, they gave me the opportunity to be one of their first coaches to be on TV on a show called Morning Drive. And I guess I did a good enough job. They invited me back. Since we filmed at least 30 other segments that I've run on different shows. And now I'm positioned to do even more with the network. I'd like to be able to spend as much time as possible helping people using that medium. And that's something that happened directly from my Genie list. St. Andrews, this is the coolest one. Save this one for last. So I wrote this book. And this book was largely put together based on little short stories that I was writing for a magazine in the UK called Golf Punk. Ever hear of Golf Punk before? It's a pretty fun magazine. And what we did is we took those stories and expanded them, we put them into the book, and when the book was released, the nice editors of Golf Punk said, hey, you know what? We're going to buy 1,000 of these, and we'd like you to sign them during the Sunday final round of the 2010 British Open Championship right on the 18th hole. What do you think of that? And I said, I think that sounds all right. So I got my trip to St. Andrews, and I had the experience of a lifetime. So this is what I learned, and this is why I really want to stress that this story, it's not about me. This story is about the way things work and what I've learned and how it changed my life profoundly from who I was, a well-trained but unhappy golf coach, into the things that I'm doing now. Right now, I'm doing exactly what I want. This right here, this was on my list. Standing here in front of all of you, sharing these things that I know. So I'm living my dream. I'm living my dream right now. It's an amazing, amazing feeling. So what I've learned is that this phenomenon is not unique or special to me. It exists and is available to everyone in this room. If you believe in the formula and then you use it. Who here has heard of a guy named Wayne Dyer, who unfortunately passed away this year? Wayne Dyer, spiritual guru. And I saw a segment with him before he passed, and a reporter said, what do you say to someone who comes up to you and says, you know what, all this stuff you're talking about is just a bunch of crap? And he said, if that's what they believe, then it's true. It only works if you believe in it. But I'm an absolute believer. So here's your challenge, and this is the challenge I create for myself every single day. If what we think is what we do, if what we focus on we bring about, and we understand that the universe works with a system of clarity, courage, and discipline, when you wake up each morning, how big can you think and how fast can you act? Because those two things are directly correlated, interrelated. And I promise you, if what you think is what you do, if what you focus on is who you become, then why in the world would you think of something anything less than exactly who it is you want to be? Because I promise you, if you enact clarity, courage, and discipline, it will show up for you over and over and over again. Everything on my list came true in a way that was bigger, better, and badder than I ever thought it would. It's got nothing to do with me at all. It's got everything to do with the process. So that's our first discussion here. And what I'm hoping from this is that the thing that's on your list and the little push I gave you right here, I hope the universe starts to conspire in your favor. I hope that person on the other side of that message says, hey, you know what? I think I can help you with that. And then what I ask of you is 6 months, a year down the line, if you're somewhere then different from where you are now, and you feel like what we talked about here had even just a little bit to do with it, I'd love to hear about it. Because that's what gets me excited. Because I'm doing exactly what I want to do, which is using my connection to the game to help people have their lives be the way they want them to be. It worked for me, and I know it can work for you. So thank you so much on this first step. So now the business development side. So when you go home, what are some things you can do to help create some leverage for your work environment? So it's confidently stepping into your own brilliance. So already, you got the clarity, courage, and discipline thing going. Already, you've been encouraged to be more authentic. But there's some really disturbing numbers associated with how many people are simply getting up every day and doing something they don't want to do. In America, 85% of the people in America report disliking their jobs. It's a huge, huge number. That means the majority of the population is spending the majority of their lives doing something they'd rather not be doing. And I think that's a huge problem. This is when I had my aha moment relative to that. When I realized that I would always have enough. Now, I'm not a rich man. I don't make millions of dollars. But I realized that there were some basic essentials in life that were going to be granted to me because of the relationships that I had. And I realized that even in the worst of times, I'd probably have enough food. And even in the worst of times, I'd probably have a place to sleep. And in the worst of times, I trusted that I would always have the care of my friends. And in the worst of times, I believed that I would have the support of my wife. So I thought to myself, if I had all of those things, then why in the world would I even consider getting up in the morning and doing anything short of exactly what I wanted? So who here believes that, if you're here, you're probably one of the fortunate people in this world. Who here believes that you'll probably be able to have those basic essentials each day? I think a lot of you. So here's your big question. How do you most profoundly want to spend the rest of your life? Have you ever thought about that before? I didn't. I got into coaching. I just wanted to be a golf coach. But never thought about how I wanted to use coaching in a manner that got me excited about every single day and every single person that I interacted with. So our program's called Make the Turn. It is basically a golf performance and lifestyle activation company, inspired purposeful action in game and lifestyle development. And it's got 4 different pillars of engagement: skill building, mindset, fitness, and nutrition. Skill building, that's what I'm good at, because I'm the coach. Mindset, I already told you about what happened to me through my friend Chris Doris. I had a mindset experience that changed my life. So that became part of how I communicated with people that were coming to help improve their golf games with. I had an experience with fitness in my 30s. I remember looking at myself in the mirror, and my belly was leaning up against my bathroom sink, and my eyes were hanging down, and I looked really tired, even at a relatively young age. And I said to myself, how in the world did I let myself get like this? Something I promised I would never do. So I met a man named Mark Verstegen, who had a company at the time called Athletes Performance, and they trained professional athletes in a lot of different sports. And I said, is there anything you need to help me? He said, show up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And I trained in that program for 8 straight years. They never charged me anything to do it. And I changed my body. I changed my life. I had an experience that was a huge impact. So that became part of how I communicated with my students. And then I married a nutritionist. So, of course, that became part of who I am. So all of these things that were happening around my coaching were things that were exciting to me, things that activated me. And I thought to myself, what if I could spend the rest of my life creating a business that challenged me to be better? And what if other people would find the same level of interest and excitement in doing the same? And maybe we could challenge ourselves to be better together through this thing that I now call Make the Turn. So that's how I came to what my life's purpose was, my life's mission, is based on this question. So now when I wake up every morning, the people I talk to, the people I collaborate with, they're all doing these things which have been special activators for me. We try our best to try and give those gifts back to the public. So all of you all give golf lessons. What's going to make you different from the next person or the next academy? I know what makes James different. He's a short game specialist who works primarily with the best players in the world. You say James Siekman, and if you are involved in the game or know anything about the game, then you know exactly who he is and what he does. And that's a very powerful thing for people to find him and for him to develop a positive lifestyle off of his skill set. So think to yourself, do you most profoundly want to develop young talent, such as juniors? Do you want to be the next great putting and short game coach? Do you want to help people through mindset training and public speaking? Are you going to be known for fitness or something else? The more you can get dialed into creating your perfect day with your perfect client up here, the better chance you have of answering this question. This is just some imagery from our brand, Make the Turn. Our website is mttperformance.com. We've got a great blog, mttperformance.com/blog. And when you see that, hopefully you'll see some creative messaging, content, and imagery that is right in line with who we want to be as a brand, directed to the kind of consumer that we want to have engaging in our programs. You got to invest in your success. Golf professionals, by and large, do not like spending money on things like marketing, brochures, logos, websites. You got to realize that you are in a service-based industry. And to consumer, you are a product, right? So you need to treat yourself the way a company would. You need to position yourself the way a company would position their products. It's got to be well done. It's got to look great. It's got to be well planned. It's got to be well executed. Just because you might just be one person, a small business owner, doesn't mean you can't portray yourself in the same level of professionalism that you would see a big company. But you're not going to do that for $50 a month. You're not going to do that for $100 a month. So I make sure that I allocate a little bit of income each month to consistently connect with a graphics and design team that allows me to keep putting out content and messaging in line with the kind of brand that we want to be. Again, we don't have a lot of money to do this, but we do allocate some money each month to make sure that happens. If you do it yourself, it's going to look like you did it yourself. I'm not an artist. I'm not a graphic designer. If I tried to create a brochure, it would look terrible, right? And if you are in the same boat as me, I guarantee you saving that couple $100 is not going to help you make more money. It's going to probably do the exact opposite. So you got to wager big to win big. You got to invest in technology as you see fit. Of course, you've got video, and you've got radar, and you've got 3D, and you've got all kinds of other things that can help you help your students. You don't have to buy it all at once. You know, we have a radar device. We don't have 3D. I do most of my lessons using primarily video. But we make sure we have some tools that can help players that are unique. You got to have a marketing plan. If you don't know how to do that, just pay someone who knows what they're doing and sit down and say, this is what I'd like to accomplish. And give me some steps that I can do on a low budget, medium budget, or high budget over time to reach my goal. What I used to do is talk with people and have a consultation. They would tell me all the social media tips and strategies for free. They would tell me how to write more effective blogs for free. They'd give me tips on how to take my website and increase its SEO capabilities for free. They would say, call me in 6 months, and if you start making more money and doing better, then come back and we'll help you further. I got it all for free. These are things that you can do with a phone call and a meeting. Creative, again, that's the website stuff. Just doing things that make you stand out. That's one of our e-blasts based around a Pebble Beach Dream Vacation contest that we launched. We're in Pebble Beach, special place. So I thought that if I offered up the trip of a lifetime to Pebble Beach, that people from all over the world would sign up for it, and then I would have their emails. And of course, in addition to them having the opportunity for this amazing trip, and it is amazing, it's 2 nights in the lodge. You play Pebble with me. You play our home course. We fly you there for free. We pay for all your meals and your transportation. I mean, it's truly a bucket list experience because our whole brand is all about creating amazing experiences. But if you don't win, you get something of amazing value, which is our entire 50-week video series on Golf Digest TV. It's just free. It's there to help you. And then you also get free tips and strategies from our entire team in mindset, fitness, and nutrition. So what has happened now? Okay, first of all, the contest cost about $5,000. I didn't pay for it. I found someone else that wanted to pay for it because they wanted to be a sponsor. I just had a creative idea. So now people from all over the world are signing up to go to Pebble Beach, which is an amazing prize. And if they don't win, they get something from us every week, which is of value to help them live and play better. So they create a brand connection, they create brand loyalty, and then all of a sudden, within those e-blasts, I say, hey, you know what? We've got a really cool audio program that I think you would like. And they go, you know what? I love that audio program. Or, you know, we've got a new golf school that we're launching in January. This is the cost. This is how you do it. So now we create these fans because 99% of the time, we're just giving you stuff that's helpful. We're not trying to sell you something every day. We're trying to change your life in a positive way. And hopefully, if you're a fan of what we do, then you'll also want to engage farther with our services. Let the pendulum swing. By and large, if I create a room of golf coaches, at least in America, and there's 100 of them, they invest 90%, right, of the money that they're going to spend into learning how to coach better. And believe me, that's really, really important. You got to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get figured out. But try and take that budget and split it a little bit and balance it between player development, coaching development, and business development. Develop some of those skills that help you build a sustainable brand. Don't be a wizard in the woods. I would say there was a period of time where golf coaches, they sort of really relied on this badge of honor. Like, if I'm great at what I do, people are going to find me. I don't need to market. I don't need to promote. I'm going to be up on some hill, and they're going to have to come find where I am. It's a secret place. And if they can find that secret place, I'm going to help them learn how to hit the ball farther, right? And anyone who would spend time developing their business acumen was looked down upon. You must not be good at what you do. Well, again, you're a product. You're a service. Treat yourself like one, because what you're trying to do is maximize your bandwidth. Try and maximize how many people connect with you and how much money you can make. Guess what? Teaching golf is what's known as a time for money business. It means you only make money if you spend the time. You give an hour lesson, you get paid for an hour. That's a terrible way to create a retirement plan, right? So, through marketing, engaging a larger audience, creating raving fans, you have more people that can engage in your products or services. So you make more money. So don't be a wizard in the woods. The winner's circle is all about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. And believe me, almost everyone is smarter than me that are surrounding what I do with my business. My advisory board, highly successful clients of mine who like who I am and what I do and offer their time. I'll invite them out, I'll give them a free lesson, I'll buy them lunch, and then I put some ideas on the table and I say, what do you think? Mr. CEO of a billion-dollar company, what do you think? Because I'm a small business owner, and I think that what you have to say is something I should listen to. So create an advisory board of people that already like you that can help you. Development team. I've got a video resource, I've got a website resource, and I've got a graphic creative resource. Again, these are people that I can go to whenever I need to help develop things that help support our brand. And because I help bring them new business through friends, clients, other, and because I use them consistently, they gave me a great price. Support network, that's anyone in your life that believes in you and your dream. So one of the things that's interesting is that when you have a big idea and you share it with someone, not everyone sees it the same way or supports you. So if you tell someone that you want to do X, Y, or Z, and they start coming up with reasons why you shouldn't do that. Oh, I don't know. You've been there for 15 years, changing locations. I don't know if that's a smart idea. Wow, you're going to invest that much in building your career? You're buying the technology? Is that really a good time to do it? Aren't your kids going to school? Right? Those are the people you need to get rid of, right? Because those are the people that are trying to get you to operate again from a shrunken level of imagination. And they're probably not doing it to hurt you. I think in life we either operate out of love or fear. So if they come up with something that's loving and supportive, it's because they really want to see you do well. If they say something that's negative and fearful, Maybe it just means that they're more comfortable when you're sitting right next to them in the same position in life or income bracket. But you got to be aware of what you're letting come in here through the people you surround yourself with. Learn to leverage. So this is something I learned a couple years ago with Golf Digest that led to this 50-week video series, which was so successful. I used to go into meetings with magazine companies, television stations or other, and I always have this big idea. This is what I think you should run. This is the story I think would be really popular. And I always tell them what I thought they should do. And then someone who was really important to me, someone on my advisory board, said, you know what? Why don't you cool your jets a little bit? Next time you go in there, ask them what they need. Brilliant. So I went to Golf Digest, and I said, hey, it's been great doing work with you. What do you guys need? And right away they said, we need video. We're dying for it. We've got a brand new video player. We don't have any content to put on it. And I said, you know what? I think I can help you with that. I've got this idea. It's for the Make the Turn Weekly Challenge series. It's 50 weeks of video, skill building, mindset, fitness, and nutrition. It'll be perfect for you. And they bought into it. They let me label the series with my brand name. And in the end, in 2014, 20 million people saw it. So I learned to leverage my relationship with them. But the big thing I did is I asked a question, right? And I became a solution. A solution. Become a go-to person, not a pain in the ass. I think everyone agrees that would be a good idea. A lot of times I see coaches who have a certain level of expectation or entitlement. If you write for a magazine, you want to get paid a certain amount of money. It's all about what they can do for you versus what you can do for them. I talked a little bit about my column in the paper. So what I've decided to do is to give. And when they ask for something, I deliver it on time. I try and be as creative as possible, right? And whatever they can give back to me, I accept that and I just say thank you. So guess what happens? The editor for Golf Digest, and the magazine editor for the Golf Channel, and the creative director for the Golf Channel, and the editor of Golf Punk Magazine, and the editor of Golf Today Northwest, and the editor of Golf Tips Magazine, on and on and on. Guess what they've become? My friends. And it's fun to work with your friends. So at 10 o'clock at night when you have a deadline and you need a story, who are you going to call? Someone that you trust, someone that's going to deliver, and someone that says thank you for your time and your effort. And that's how I was able to leverage my skill of writing, the things I do on camera, into doing things for a lot of people. Be professionally persistent. It's not about you, no sour grapes. I've pitched some very big companies on some ideas that I thought were really fantastic, and they've said no to me time and time again. And what I've realized is that when they say no, it's not about me. They've got a whiteboard, and they have initiatives, and they're trying their best to make all those things happen for their company. Doesn't mean they don't like me. Doesn't mean they don't like my idea. It's just not what they're into right now. So don't take things personally. Stay professionally persistent. Say thank you for your time, and continue following up. If your idea is a good one, someone will latch onto it, and it'll pay off. Why do you do that? Again, awareness, reach, opportunity. The more people who know about you, the more money you can make. These are the things that I try and do as a coach for my players and also the media that I engage with. I try and challenge them to think differently so they can reveal possibility. Whether that's something you're doing media-related or just working with the talented players trying to go to the next level. Inspire. That's what good coaches do. They help take people to places they couldn't go on their own. You are so important. You are all experts. You have tremendous value. You give people joy in their lives through doing something that's fun and inspiring. You help kids become more mentally tough so they can see the world in a more exciting way. You save parents money by helping them get college scholarships. You are among the most important people in their lives. Embrace that responsibility, grow your brand, and get paid for it. Entertain. I think we're in the entertainment business. When you watch something on TV or in a magazine, you go, that sucks. Realize that it's supposed to be entertaining. Not everything can be a biomechanics seminar. Right? Sometimes you got to do a little, feed them a small amount of information. But above all, you got to care. If you help people get what they want out of their lives, I guarantee you will get every single thing you want out of your life. And that's what I want to do with all of you. So again, I am here for the next 2 days. I will spend every second, every minute, every hour answering all of your questions. And my goal is to leave Bangkok, wheels up, heading back to California, feeling like I gave you absolutely everything that I have. Because if I can give something to you, then you give something back to me, which is a sense of fulfillment and the validation that my purpose is worthwhile. Pressure and time. No good work goes unrewarded. Don't ask, don't get. Throw it out there. You need to hear the no's. When someone says no, it just makes you more creative. You do a better job. The product in the end becomes better than it was before. Above all, if your life seems under control, you're just not going fast enough. When I stand up here, you get nervous. You want to do well. But right now I feel like I'm growing in front of you. And if you feel the same way each day in whatever you're doing, I believe you'll grow as well. You're all more powerful than you think. Thank you so much.